You're listening to the podcast of Rain City Church.
Babe, can you hurry up?
I can't figure out how to buckle this thing.
We're going like 3 miles. Who cares?
All right,
Leave
fine.
it.
What are you doing?
It's dry shampoo. Do you think I have time to shower?
Why do you need that? Just wake up earlier.
Oh, maybe if you'd help me with the kids, I could bathe.
I do everything in this house.
Here, put some of this under your eyes. Did you not get any sleep?
I got plenty of sleep. I'm fine. What?
Daddy stayed up playing poker.
Okay, enough. Play with the Barbies.
Can you please learn how to drive?
Listen, do your makeup at the house.
I don't have time. What is this, chocolate or poop?
Mom, Dylan wants to watch videos on Dad's phone.
Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. Tell Dylan that Daddy's texting and driving, and he can't
listen,
use it.
I'm navigating, all right? I'm on the GPS.
Okay, maybe if you went to church more, you wouldn't have to look up where it is. How long has this coffee been in here?
I don't know, since last weekend.
I don't care.
You're in charge of the kids.
Oh, I'm in charge of the kids?
I don't know. Wives, submit to your husbands. Ever read that verse?
You ever heard the song, It Takes Two to Make a Thing Go Right?
That's not a Bible verse.
Maybe Barbie needs a new kin. But please, can I have that?
Look at that. And you would have another baby?
We're not
Guys,
going to the playground!
Quiet. I can't handle it. We are going to church.
If you guys can act good for just 2 hours, we'll take you to Pizza Hut after church, okay?
Did you just bribe our children?
It's the only thing that works. We're about to go into church. Will you put your phone on silent?
Okay, maybe you should put your voice on silent, honestly.
Okay.
Hey, we're like 15 minutes late to church.
Should we just act like visitors and park in the front?
I don't know. We got to put on our flashers for that.
Should we just drop the kids off and go to lunch?
Can we even do that?
We tithe enough, we should be.
Mom, Dylan said he has to pee.
Let him pee in his pants. I don't care.
We have the diaper bag, sweetie. It's the church nursery's problem.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Matt, and I'm one of the pastors here. I want to welcome you guys today, and also if you're listening online or watching the podcast, welcome. I want to really quickly just recap our series. We're doing this series called Lead with Love, and we're sharing our long-term 3-year vision. So this series has been really exciting because we felt like we've had more momentum and more alignment in where we're going as a church and how we are all going to grow spiritually together. So let's just recap real quick where we've been, our vision, our purpose, and then today we're going to specifically look at our values. So our vision statement, as Ben said earlier, is to experience God in the everyday. That's what we want for all of us, that we see and find and experience God in everyday life. Our purpose statement is this, that we exist to help people experience God in the everyday through discovering what it means to be loved by Him, to belong to and build an authentic community, compelling us to become a positive force, achieving our God-given potential. And I'm into that. That's what I'm up for. If you guys are too, come along with me. This week, we're going to talk about our values. These are the things that drive everything that we just talked about. So there's 5 of them, and Jesse and I have talked about this for the last 5 years. We feel like we've really landed on what makes us uniquely us, what makes Rain City Church different. We're not taking a conference, a church-in-a-box kit from the Midwest and throwing it into Seattle and saying, it'll work here because it worked in Atlanta. No, we've spent a lot of time and a lot of just sweat equity in coming up with what we think makes us unique, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's dive right in. Number 1, our first value is this, authenticity. We don't waste our lives trying to live someone else's. You know, when I was growing up, I thought I was going to be a professional football player because obviously. Look at this physique. These narrow shoulders and these tiny legs scream professional football player. But the town I grew up in, Snohomish, Washington, any Panthers out there? Yeah, a couple. Yeah, we got one. I know. But there were 2 things. You were either going to be a farmer or you were going to be a football player. That was it. Those were the 2 options that were laid out for you at that time. And so I grew up in this town thinking, man, I got these 2 choices. I'm going to be in farming or trades, or I'm going to be an athlete. Those are the 2 examples that I had. And so I was a good enough high school football player. I started, I was a wide receiver. I was told that I was kind of like Steve Largent, if you guys know who that is. Slow, average white guy who could catch. But Hall of Famer, nonetheless. So I took that as a compliment. But so I ended up, going through high school playing, and it was great. I had a lot of great experiences. I love football still to this day. But I toured one college on the possibility of playing up at Western Washington University. And I walked into the locker room, and I saw like this one type of person that was they all had the same haircut. They were all wearing the same clothes. They were all talking the same. And I just walked in like, oh man, I don't think that's me. And I felt that day, that tour, I felt released into being who I really was. And I always had music and ministry in my heart, and that's who I was. And so it wasn't until I was 18 years old and realized that, being a football player was not who I really am. And it was my first meeting with myself, I guess, when I was 18 years old. And a lot of us today have taken these imprints of how we were raised or how we think we're supposed to be raised, and we're trying to live someone else's life. And that's what we want to fight against. Who are you really? Who are you inside? Who has God created you uniquely to be? Brene Brown, who's become sort of a modern-day evangelist for authenticity and vulnerability, says this quote, "Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are." So when we relate to each other as followers of Jesus, we're talking about not just surface level chit chat. It's genuine, heart to heart, sometimes gut level sharing. And it happens when people get honest about who they are, what's happening in their lives. They share their hurts, their doubts. They reveal their true feelings, acknowledge their weaknesses, and ask for help and prayer. And authenticity is exactly the opposite of what you find in many churches that I've been at before. Instead of an atmosphere of honesty and humility and authenticity, there's pretending, there's role-playing, there's politicking, there's superficial politeness, and just shallow conversation. And that's what we want to fight against in a real way. And, because we tend to wear, these masks in life, we put on our face, we fight on the way to church, and we, check our kids' diapers and pretend that it's not poop. But we keep our guards up. We act as if everything is rosy in our lives. And this attitude is the death of real friendship and real authenticity. And in fact, the Latin root word for actor or stage performer or pretender is hypocrites, which is the root word for hypocrite. So if we're all just being actors wearing masks all the time, we're never going to get to the true authenticity and who we really are. Even in the last 5 years at this church, so many people have come to me and they've shared real, painful, hard things and asked for help. And those moments, we celebrate those moments because we know that God can show up and do a miracle in those moments. But so many people get afraid or they feel embarrassed about what they've shared and they go away. There's dozens of stories of people who have come forward, who have expressed in a moment of real authenticity. And then for some reason they're embarrassed or ashamed and they just go away. We want to fight against that. Because real relationships happen in the light. We have to take off our masks. Look at this verse, 1 John 1:7 and 8. If we walk step by step in the light where the Father is, then we are ultimately connected to each other through the sacrifice of Jesus, his Son. His blood purifies us from all our sins. If we go around bragging we have no sin, then we are fooling ourselves and are strangers to the truth. So the value of authenticity is this: it's living in the light of truth. Do you have at least one person in your life where there are no masks, where you can be truly authentic? If you do, grab your app, and in the message notes section, you can just take a note, write that person's name down today, and thank God for them, because that's a true gift in life, if you have someone that you can share at that level. Make an effort to tell them, thank you for being in my life in that role today. Maybe get together for coffee with them and practice, because it takes practice. We have to practice being vulnerable and being authentic with each other. But that's one of the defining characteristics of who we are. That's why people come for the first time to Rain City Church and they go, why? I can't tell why it's different here, but it just is. People say, oh, it just feels healthy. I don't know. I think it's because we are champions of this value, authenticity. The second value is this: inclusivity. The light is brightest when everyone shines. Now, this word I know pushes a lot of hot buttons. in all of us. We have racial tensions, we have sexuality and gender tensions, we have political tensions, we have socioeconomic tensions, traditional values versus progressive values. It gets really hot really fast when you hear this word, inclusivity. But I want to take it just to look at Jesus' example of how he was radically inclusive. And I want to start with the simple concept of what he did. And almost all of his, in the parables in the Bible, when he comes in and he's radically inclusive, he does two things. He renames and he remakes. Renaming and remaking. Now, a simple example of renaming is this. So many companies that are successful that we all know and love were not originally named what they are now. So take a look at Blue Ribbon Sports. Can we see that? Does anybody know what Blue Ribbon Sports eventually became? That's right, Nike. Yeah, Nike. So Blue Ribbon Sports, guys, it started there. This is one of my favorites, too. The next thing that was renamed into something and remade into something better was Brad's Drink. Does anyone know what Brad's Drink became? Close. Pepsi. Brad's Drink. Some guy named Brad made this drink. And I think Pepsi was a better name for that, right? And then this is my all-time favorite. And there's a little hint. So what company started as Back Rub? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can Google it. It was Back Rub. Can you imagine if it was still called Back Rub? Hey, will you back rub that for me? I don't know, just back rub it. What? No, it's so awkward. But renaming, so this concept of renaming, what Jesus did in his radical inclusivity was this. He would come into situations that were clearly culturally binary, like the in crowd and the out crowd. And he destroyed the binariness of it. He said, nope, okay, Jews and Gentiles, check this out. Jews, you think you're the chosen people? Yes. Gentiles are out? Nope, you're all accepted and loved by me. Everybody has the chance to be renamed. He would come in and rename. Oh, you're worried about your food choices. That food's blessed, that food's not. Nope, that's silly, guys. Like, just eat. Okay, right? So that's what he did. He included everyone. But in the process, he's not just coming in and saying, okay, evil is good and good is evil, and everyone just one together in the oneness of the one. No. He renamed things so that they could be remade in the way that they were supposed to be remade. It's all over the biblical accounts, guys. He says no. He says, everybody's in. Stop worrying about your food, whether it's blessed or not. We have bigger fish to fry, right? In fact, his prayer is that we would all be one, being renamed. That was a classic Jesus move. He would rename people and call them through their name into their true design, what they're on the earth to do. And what that renaming does is open the possibility of being remade into what he wants you to be. So here's his prayer for us. He said, my prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, speaking of the disciples and believers of the time, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one, I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. So we all have different opinions. We all have different beliefs and things that we hold dear. Inclusivity is practicing patience. Practicing patience with things that we don't understand, with things that we don't know everything about. Because we are all loved by God no matter what, and the invitation to be remade through a relationship with Jesus is extended to all of us. And in fact, one of the last things that we hear him say in the Bible in Revelation 21:5 is this, not on the screens, but I'll just read it. It says, behold, I am making all things new. Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. All things new. Just let that sit for a second. The last thing he says is I am making all things new. being renamed, being remade. So inclusivity is practicing patience in this process of being renamed and remade. So you'll meet people here that don't think like you, don't look like you. That's a good thing. If everyone looks and acts and talks and dresses the same, that's called a cult. Write this down. You shouldn't join those, okay? So if you're not uncomfortable once in a while here, then we're asking the question, are we growing? Are you aware of what God is renaming and remaking around you? Where do you need to seek out someone who thinks differently than you and have a dialogue so that both of you can participate in God's renaming and remaking? Because the light is brightest when everyone shines, even if we disagree on things, right? Inclusivity. And I've practiced this several times here. Like we've said things from stage or accidentally let a secondary opinion about something slip out. And rather than people just leaving and writing 1-star reviews on whatever is out there, I don't even know, but like just saying that church sucks. They just, people have engaged in dialogue to understand and be included in the process of being renamed and remade. That's what we're all here for. So let's practice that. Practice patience. Number 3, the third value is generosity. We do things for people who will probably never find out it was us. And this is the counterintuitive but ultimately simple economy of God. When you give more, you get more. I love there's tons of verses about giving and generosity, but my favorite one is the Proverbs verse. It's just so simple. Proverbs 11:25, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Straight to the point. A generous person will prosper. And then, did anybody grow up in the 70s and know about the Living Bible? Anybody ever have that growing up? Show a picture of it. This was on my table in Snohomish growing up, and I never understood what it was, but it's a paraphrase of the Bible. And it's kind of cool to read, there's a website called BibleGateway.com, and that's what we use typically to prepare for messages and, prepare for when we share things. And it allows you to select from any translation or paraphrase that's out there. There's hundreds. But the Living Bible, I love the way that it talks about generosity from that verse. So the NIV, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. The Living Bible, in the 70s language that resonates with me, says, it is possible to give away and become richer. It's also possible to hold on too tightly and lose everything. Yes, the liberal man, meaning generous, not in ideology, again, another hot button. Yes, the liberal man shall be rich. By watering others, he waters himself. That means when you offer what you have to someone else, you will be filled back up. And this is the open hand versus the closed fist approach to our finances, right? So everything that we have is a gift from God. My job, my family, my work, my friendships, my talents, my gifts, my friends. If I hold it with an open hand, if I hold all those things with an open hand, what can God do? God can, if he finds me ready and finds me trustworthy with a little, if my hand is open, he can put more into my hand. But if I hold it like this, if I hold my money, my job, my friends, my talents like this, it's mine, what happens? Anything he tries to put in my hand will fall. It will not be received by me. So this is how we view generosity. We live with an open hand, knowing that when we give, we will get more. And that's why we strive to live this out as an organization. We don't want to become, we meet in high school. We don't want to become a slave to a mortgage if that means we have to stop growing in generosity. We continue to support the needs and dreams of our local membership here, supporting our region, being ready to respond, our partnership for orphan care with AGCI, with Charity Water and Water for Good, fighting to evaporate water poverty in our lifetime. These are the things that we're committed to and being generous. If we had to buy $1 million boiler for our building, we would have to stop all of this work just so we could have a place to meet. And that just seems silly. That's why we love set up, tear down, not when it rains at 5 in the morning. But it paves the way for our generosity. And did you know, this new stat that came out just this week about our friends in Central Africa, out of every 1,000 babies born in the United States, 6 will die. In the Central African Republic, the number is 93. 93 babies will die out of 1,000 in Central African Republic because they don't have access to clean and safe water, to wash their hands and feet, to deliver babies and wash them. Dying from simple diseases like diarrhea. We can't stand by and watch that. We're going to stick with these cause partners because we think that's where Jesus would be. And we are trying to grow as an organization in generosity as well. We are on track, you guys, this is cool. We're on track to give away into the field, into our region, into our family, $1 million by the end of next year. That's crazy. $1 million by the end of 2020. That's crazy for an 8-year-old church, right? I love that we're going after this kind of generosity. So I invite you to participate in the generosity movement. And there's ways to do it. The way that we look at it here, if you're new or if you're not participating, there's sort of 5 stages that we've identified. There's the first-time giver. That's when we have an opportunity that you can see where your money's going and your heart's moved by a story. You give a first-time gift. That's incredible. That's where we start. That's how I started. Next thing is to give again. You give a second gift because you believe in what's happening here. And this is when I think God begins to show up. He begins to reward. He begins to bless you in different ways, sometimes financially, sometimes in supernatural peace or other miraculous ways. And then we're moved to study it and say, what is God's economy really? And that's when we become a regular or proportional giver. And that's sort of, the traditional idea of tithing. Right? We tithe enough, so we should be able to drop our kids off and just go to lunch. That level. 10% is a great place to start. In the Old Testament, it was more like 40%. People brought everything they had to the temple. We don't live that way now. But this is when new blessings start, when it becomes a habit, when you set up recurring gifts and really help us as a church to plan for the future. And then so many of you here are extravagant givers. This is where you understand that where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. You ever buy a stock that you didn't care about before, and then all of a sudden you're watching it every day? It's because where your heart goes, your treasure goes, and where your treasure goes, your heart goes. And then there are several folks here who have entered this, what I had to create another category just because I didn't know what else to call it. Generational givers. People that have given so extravagantly and generously, they're literally creating the opportunity for future generations to enter into these values. It's incredible. There's a family here that is, I'm not going to name their names and kind of steal their blessing from God, but there's a family here that accidentally came to Rain City Church when we met in the movie theater in Lincoln Square. And they thought they were going in to see a movie, and they sat through the whole service. And that day, we did a giving talk, and it was a generosity talk, and we were talking about how if you take this 90-day giving challenge, just try it, test God at His Word. If you don't experience everything that we're talking about, then we'll give you your money back. We'll give it all back to you because we don't want anything from you. We want something for you to grow in generosity because that's how God made us to live abundantly. And so they came, and they were just like, all right, sounds good. So they just started giving crazy enough to say that next week they had the biggest financial windfall of their lives, completely unexpected. And they have become our number one supporter. That's how crazy God works. Like, oh, you think you're going to see Kindergarten Cop 3? Nope. You're going to go hear a talk at a church in a theater, like whatever. And to this day, they're just some dear, dear friends. So the truth is that generosity is the hinge that opens the door of our hearts to experience God. It really does. 6 ways to do that here. If practically speaking, you can give stocks and securities. A lot of people didn't know this, but we are a approved charity with Amazon Smile. So if you go to smile.amazon.com and select Rain City Church, every 0.05%, they're just so generous. But 0.05% adds up. You know, if you have a company account or you use Amazon like most of us do, you can do that. Corporate matching as well through Benevity. Recurring gifts, our app with PushPay is fantastic. It's so easy to give. You can just pop the app open and hit give, and there's all these different ways to do that. You can mail in checks from your bank or family trust or use the silver giving boxes on Sundays. So let's grow in generosity and see what God's going to do with it. The next value is creativity. We're brave enough to make and try new things, even if they fail sometimes. Does anybody remember my starting point class? No, because none of y'all signed up for it. Not one person signed up for it. Okay, other fails that we have a fail party every week. Here and go, okay, what didn't work? Anybody remember block parties? Nobody did those. We had the brilliant idea to watch the Seahawks game after the services. Nobody came to that. Multiple Christmas Eve services. Another great idea for a young family. No. Good stuff, but not the best. So the new vision for our spiritual community direction again, like I said, it's not an off-the-shelf product. It's not a Catalyst-approved strategy. But we put in this sweat equity to figure out where God is uniquely leading us in new and creative ways. And we take creativity seriously. Obviously, you know, we're musicians, taking risks there, trusting, trying new things. We're going to be doing new worship projects with Nikolai and the band, who sounded amazing today. We're going to do worship nights. I'm not sure if it's here or in another venue. We'll continue to do our outreach events with Petty Differences in the West Coast feed. The next Petty show, by the way, is going to be at McMenamins up in Bothell. We got invited to play their 88th birthday party on October 11th, Friday night. And many of you guys have come and brought your friends to these shows before you'll bring your friends to a service. So continue to use those events as side door entrances into our community. And it just all means everything's a benefit, so everything benefits orphan care and clean water. So it's pretty fun. We've had a great summer. We played a lot in the 40-year history of the Kirkland Summer Concerts. The last Petty Differences show was the biggest attended event in the history of that concert series. So many of you guys are here today because you were invited to a show first. So continue to use those creative efforts to include others. And over the past 5 years, that's one of the ways that I really feel like Jesse and I have been renamed ourselves and remade. We had some kind of borderline abusive voices in our past that said, oh, you can't play music in your 40s. What do you have to, no, that's ugly. Why? Dad bands, come on, guys, no, don't do it, you know? And so we had these voices in our head saying and we believed them. Yet God was calling us into being our creative selves. And so we were at a conference in Austin, and we went and saw a band called The Head and the Heart, and we saw an artist called Kishibashi, and we were just sitting there going, that's all lies. All of those voices that are telling us not to be our authentic selves, not to invest in creativity, not to be generous with the gifts that we've been given, they're lies. So let's stop believing those. You know, so where do you need to bring this value of creativity into the areas of your life where you feel stuck, where you feel like you're just listening to someone else's script telling you what your life should be? Ask for help. Talk to people. Share your ideas. God is here to make us new and so we can be creative in sharing his love with the world. And our final value is this: reciprocity. We get out of it what we put into it. Reciprocity. We get out of it what we put into it. And, you know, many complaints around here, we never get complaints. No one ever complains about anything. It's perfect. But many complaints come from people who are not invested in the community at all, because the loudest boos typically come from the cheapest seats, right? So for groups, if the complaint is, I'm not feeling connected, this church is so cliquey, Are you investing in new relationships yourself? Are you offering to host a group? Are you participating? Are you going to the group that you signed up for at all? Right? I know life's crazy. Right. But if your complaint is, I'm not feeling connected, this church is so cliquey, invest relationally. Another complaint is, about the music. I love the music. I'm a musician, but, when I get texts from people, I don't like that song with all the la, la, la's in it. I counted 37 la, la, la's. When you're invested in a community, when you're inviting people, when you're making a difference, you really don't have time to count the la-las, right? When you're really worshiping with your church family, you don't have time to do that. You're experiencing God, right? So serve, invest in the community somehow, however you're gifted or whatever your availability is. The complaint, I'm not getting fed. The messages are just, I'm not getting fed. What? Feed me. I don't like the messages. I don't like the talk. I'm not getting fed. Well, when we are growing in spiritual maturity, when we're getting out of it what we put into it, we feed ourselves. Mature, faith-filled people feed themselves. And today, it's so easy. Like, go listen to your favorite brilliant speaker. You could just, on your phone during this message, pull it up and watch the comments. Like, oh yeah, that's, whatever. It's so easy to get good content. And that's not what we're about here, is being the thought leaders and the paradigm breakers. And, we're here to equip you to feed yourself, to grow spiritually. And sometimes that means, you've got to figure out a strategy to do that. And that's why we're so excited about this new vision, because starting in October, we're going to walk through the book of Acts together as a church. We're going to have groups that are focused on that. There's a daily reading plan that we'll send out through the app. There'll be discussion questions for groups that we'll push out through the app as well. And we're really excited about that. It's a one chance to, as a group, we're all going to go through the book of Acts together and see what God does. It's going to be a great time. But what else? If you're complaining about our families, our marriage, our work, what are you investing into it? Do you need more time with your spouse? Do you need to grow together in something? Do you need to listen more? Are you sacrificing your personal preferences for the other? Are you saying no to good things so that you can say yes to the best things? That's what reciprocity is. We don't want to end up being like that dinner guest who comes over every week and never helps clean up or never brings anything. At some point, you're just not going to get invited back. So don't do that. I want to invite us all. Will you join me and join us in championing these 5 values, these 5 pillars? And we pray together that God finds us ready to receive more as we experience life with an open hand, so that more lives can be changed, more marriages can be saved, more families restored, more orphans given a home, more clean water flowing in the world. And my good friend said it like this, to sum it up: the world will not be changed by my opinion. The world will be changed by my example. The world will not be changed by our opinion. The world will be changed by our example. So let's live it out. Let's lead with love.
We hope you enjoyed this message. For more information and resources, go to RainCityChurch.com. Thanks for listening.